Donald Dewar is duly elected to serve as a member of the Scottish Parliament for Glasgow and his land.
The first 6 words of the Scotland Act read simply, "There shall be a Scottish Parliament," and with those 6 simple words, Scottish politics are forever changed.
May 1999 marked a new beginning for Scottish politics. 2 years after Labour swept to power in a landslide at Westminster, voters here elected the first Scottish Parliament in almost 3 centuries.
The Scottish Parliament, adjourned on the 25th day of March in the year 1707, is hereby reconvened.
Decision-making had been brought closer to home. The question now facing the nation's new MSPs was what to do with it.
Morning, gentlemen.
Almost immediately, Labour and the Liberal Democrats began talks over a coalition.
We'll have to see how we get on, but we want it to work. But we may not. But we'll give it our best shot.
They signed a deal ushering in an era of a new type of politics.
Jim and myself can confirm that agreement has been reached between Labour and the Liberal Democrat groups in the Scottish Parliament.
This historic agreement will ensure that Scotland's first Parliament for 300 years will make a difference for all of the people of Scotland.
In July, the Queen officially opened the new Parliament.
It is a moment rare in the life of any nation when we step across the threshold of a new constitutional age.
We are fallible. We all know that. We'll make mistakes. But I hope and I believe we will never lose sight of what brought us here. The striving to do right by the people of Scotland, to respect their priorities, to better their lot, and to contribute to the common weal.
Then it was time for the work to begin. In their temporary home here in the Mound, MSPs wasted little time using their newly devolved powers. After months of bruising debate, they scrapped the controversial Section 28 law, which prohibited the promotion of homosexuality in schools. They abolished upfront tuition fees, replacing them with a graduate endowment. But then, with the Parliament still in its infancy, there came a tragedy whose impact was felt far beyond the world of politics.
It's with deep sadness I have to report that Scotland's First Minister, Donald Dewar, has died. This is a sad day for Scotland. Scotland has lost a great man.
The death of Donald Dewar from a brain hemorrhage led to a flood of tributes for a man described as the father of devolution. In the leadership race which followed, Henry McLeish defeated Jack McConnell to become Labour leader and First Minister.
Thanks for the honour. Let me say, I won't let you down.
But he did just that.
Why wouldn't you say the figure, First Minister?
His tenure was short-lived thanks to a scandal that became known as Officegate.
What is important is that I take full personal responsibility.
McLeish resigned after failing to declare income on subletting his Fife constituency office. Jack McConnell stepped in to steady the ship. Within months, he oversaw the introduction of free personal care for the elderly. The 2003 election produced a broad mix of parties and independent MSPs. The so-called Rainbow Parliament was led once again by a coalition of Labour and the Liberal Democrats. After years of controversy over its construction, MSPs moved into their new home here in Holyrood in 2004. An inquiry into the lengthy delays and spiralling costs criticised the management of the project, but it found no single villain of the piece. This was an issue that had dogged the early years of the Parliament. David McLetchie resigned as leader of the Conservatives after spending more than £11,000 on taxi fares. He was succeeded by Annabel Goldie.
The wheels are back on the wagon and I'm the nag hitched up to tow it.
Then came a moment as significant for devolution as it was for public health. Scotland became the first UK nation to ban smoking in public places, including restaurants and pubs. A radical change overcoming fierce opposition, a sign that Parliament had finally come of age. By the narrowest of margins, the SNP emerged the largest party in the 2007 election.
Alex Salmond is selected as this Parliament's nominee for appointment as First Minister.
Alex Salmond formed a minority government, overturning Labour's decades of long dominance of Scottish politics.
It's my intention to tender my resignation to the Queen.
The party also lost power at Westminster in 2010. David Cameron replaced Gordon Brown as Prime Minister, forming a coalition with the Liberal Democrats. Then in 2011...
People talking about it being historic.
Well, it seems pretty reasonable.
The SNP burst the electoral system, winning a majority of seats.
It's not just Lanarkshire, it's not just Ayrshire, it's not just Glasgow, it's not just Edinburgh, it's Renfrewshire, in fact it's everywhere.
It was a stunning victory, achieving what once seemed unthinkable.
I'll govern for all of the ambitions of Scotland and all the people who imagine that we can live in a better land.
And it paved the way for a vote on independence. After months of negotiations, Salmond and Cameron met in Edinburgh to agree the terms of a referendum on independence. The deal handed power to Holyrood to hold a vote with a single yes-no question. The result didn't go to plan for Salmond.
The people of Scotland have spoken.
Within hours, he stepped down as SNP leader and First Minister.
For me as leader, my time is nearly over. But for Scotland, the campaign continues, and the dream shall never die.
There was only one likely successor.
I declare that Nicola Sturgeon is selected as this Parliament's nominee for appointment as First Minister.
I will be First Minister for all of Scotland. Regardless of your politics or your point of view, my job is to serve you.
The Marriage and Civil Partnership Scotland Bill is passed.
Having approved a new law around a different kind of union, the first same-sex marriages took place in December. The SNP secured a third term in 2016, but lost its overall majority. The Conservatives, led by Ruth Davidson, leapfrogged Labour to become the second biggest party. Debate around the Constitution continued to dominate.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day!
The UK's vote to leave the EU, despite a majority of Scots backing Remain, sparked fresh calls for a vote on independence.
It is a significant and material change in circumstances. The option of a second referendum must be on the table.
Now is not the time, came the repeated response from Westminster.
Prime Minister.
In the House of Commons, Prime Minister Theresa May repeatedly failed to get a Brexit deal passed.
But with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
She quit, with Boris Johnson taking over.
Never mind the backstop, the buck stops here.
Here, the former First Minister Alex Salmond was cleared of 12 charges, including attempted rape, following a trial in Edinburgh.
Whatever nightmare I've been in over these last 2 years, it is as of nothing compared to the nightmare that every single one of us is currently living through.
Hours later, the UK was put in lockdown as the COVID pandemic took hold.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades. All over the world, we're seeing the devastating impact of this invisible killer.
Following an address from the Prime Minister, Nicola Sturgeon announced strict measures to try to control the virus.
Coronavirus is the biggest challenge of our lifetimes, and the measures we take to tackle it must reflect the magnitude of that.
Plans for an independence referendum were paused as businesses closed and the nation was asked to stay at home. After the election in 2021, the SNP agreed a deal with the Scottish Greens, which saw them enter government for the first time. But the alliance failed to move on the debate on independence.
The Scottish Parliament does not have the power to legislate for a referendum on Scottish independence.
The Supreme Court dashed any hope of Holyrood holding a referendum without Westminster's consent.
To all of the people of Scotland, whether you voted for me or not, please know that being your First Minister has been the privilege of my life.
Nicola Sturgeon stunned the political world by announcing her resignation as First Minister and SNP leader.
When you were Transport Minister, the trains were never on time. When you were Justice Minister, the police were strained to breaking point.
A bitter and fractious leadership race followed, with Yousaf emerging the winner.
To serve my country as First Minister will be the greatest privilege and honour of my life.
Yousaf's time in office, though, was marked by controversy and policy reversals. Nicola Sturgeon, her husband Peter Murrell, and former Treasurer Colin Beattie were all arrested and released without charge. Mr Murrell, Chief Executive of the SNP for 22 years, has since been charged in connection with embezzlement from the party. Westminster blocked gender reforms, while plans for highly protected marine areas and a deposit return scheme were also shelved. Then, after ditching climate targets and a pause on puberty blockers, Yousaf ended the alliance with the Greens.
The Butte House Agreement was intended to provide stability to the Scottish Government, and it has made possible a number of achievements, but it has served its purpose.
His handling of the breakup was to cost him his position.
Who does the First Minister think he is pleased most today? Is it Douglas Ross, Fergus Ewing or Alex Salmond? And more to the point, which of them does he think he can rely on for a majority in Parliament now?
He quit before a vote of no confidence in his leadership. John Swinney took over unopposed, becoming Scotland's 7th First Minister.
I offer myself to be the First Minister for everyone in Scotland. I am here to serve you. I will give everything I have to build the best future for our country.
After 25 years, the Scottish Parliament is now well established as a dominant feature of Scottish life. Few could imagine being governed without it. And in that sense, it has been a success as an institution. But the past decade has seen Scottish politics riven by division. Most issues are now seen through the prism of the Constitution. Donald Dewar once said that devolution is a process, not an event. That process, the story of Scotland's Parliament, continues.